Hello, and welcome to Mid-Coast Morning. I'm your host, Mick Sweetman.
And I'm your co-host, Jesse Woodward. Today on the program, we speak with Sara Ladret, a woman who is sleeping in Italian Square's park downtown when the city and police kicked her out and fenced off the entire parkette.
We also speak with Mayor Leonard Krog about why the city continues to break up encampments.
Joe Pugh also brings us an interview of Holly Bright and Samantha Tydion Price of Crimson Coast Dance about their 17th annual Body Talk HiP HoP PoW WoW. We also speak with the president of the Nanaimo Pride Society, Alessandro Iachelli, about why he is pushing the city to ban so-called conversion therapy in Nanaimo. Finally, Joe Pugh brings us part 2 of a feature of Vancouver band The Fugitives. He again interviews band member Brendan Macleod on their album Trench Songs. But first, Mick's interview with Sara Ladret.
Early on Thursday morning, City of Nanaimo bylaw officers showed up at an encampment at Italian Square Park near Port Place Mall in Nanaimo. After telling people who had been camping there they had to pack up their belongings and leave, the city fenced off the entire park to prevent anyone from using it. The next day, I spoke to one woman who had slept at the park the night before it was cleared.
My name is Sara Ladret. I've been around this town for about, more years than I want to count. I moved here almost 40 years ago. And I've spent a good majority of it living on and off the streets. I really haven't spent an awful long time living inside in my own place. I think a month here or 2 months here. And I had one roommate for about 4 years. But in all honesty, I barely ever lived there. I was always out and about to see my experience. It depends on what you're talking about. My experience with Nanaimo has been up and down. I love it as much as I hate it. And this is my home. I've been here since I was 7. And no matter how many times I've left, I always come back. And there's just so many reasons. The people are my reason for being downtown, though. I've always been, I guess, what you call a caregiver. I didn't raise my children because I chose to live a life of an active drug addict. And that started just after I split up with my husband, gave birth to my second child, and my only brother killed himself. I kind of lost my mind and went a little crazy. And this is I'm not going to say the end result, but the ongoing result right now.
And you were actually at the Italian Fountain by Port Place the night before the city came and closed it down. Yeah. Can you just tell me what happened?
Yeah, certainly. I wasn't aware that there had been, I guess, a previous announcement saying that they were going to be emptying the park first thing in the morning. And I have an ongoing relationship with the bylaw and the police that came down in and policed the situation as they were the ones that used to come down to Wesley Street when we lived there. And so it was an ongoing daily thing. Got to meet them, talk to them, and really sort of keep things on an even keel. So when they saw me there, they always worry that I'm down there and should be at home. But it was a lot less tension than I expected for the situation. Bylaw showed up and explained to me that everyone was going to have to exit the park, not just pack up, but to exit the park. And they were going to have to move forward. And I was helping a friend pack up their stuff. And I asked about 6 different people where I could take what I had to be considered off property, at least for the moment, until everyone was off and, they could move on from there, right? And not a single person could give me a straight answer. The one answer they kept coming up with was Bowen Park. They want everyone in Bowen Park. And that, to me, just seems really odd. That they want all of us living in one place. I say all of us. I do have a place inside, living at Terminal, I guess Newcastle. I call it the projects. I have a roof, I have food, and I have somewhere to sleep. So I can't complain. The mentality there is no different than living on the streets. Actually, it is a little different. Living here on the streets, people are more considerate to each other that I found than living inside. That's just my opinion.
How much time did they give people?
Not enough. Less than an hour. When I was woken up, I guess they just showed up and it was time to go. They told me I had 20 minutes. to get everything off. So I'm guessing about an hour was the total amount of time. And they did give more time. Like you can't really give 20 people 20 minutes to get off the property, tell them there's nowhere to go except for Bowen Park and expect them to all be done. You know, some people have been living there for a while now. So it was really difficult to say 20 minutes and you're out. You know, a lot of us had to practice being on Wesley Street. We knew what time we had to be packed up. We knew what time we had to be off Wesley and, you know, across the street to in order to be able to get the street sweeper in and clean it up every day. So people were disturbed, obviously disrupted, up and down emotions. To me, and again, my own personal opinion, sending every single person to Bowen Park when we're all supposed to be doing social distancing really seems as backwards to me. It seems almost like we're being trapped. We're being caged out of every part of Nanaimo. We're not allowed to go in anywhere. But they're going to send all of them into Bowen Park, and then what? Then you got them all in the same place.
Right, and I believe actually the city fenced off the gazebos in Bowen Park because people were camping there.
That's right. They've cut off all access to all amenities. Part of the letter that they sent out stated that if you were to camp somewhere, you were not to camp within acceptable distance to amenities, including bathrooms, showers, food, water. If you need it, you may not camp close to it because that's for the regular people. That's for the people that don't live on the streets, the ones that have jobs and live inside and drive cars and do all the, if you will, normal people things. I don't know what they think we're going to do. I don't know what they think the problem is or why they think we're so problematic. We just needed a place to sleep, a place to be, a place to have our stuff and not have to pick it up and move it every day. You know, we weren't causing problems. No one was getting robbed and no one was being harassed. I know some people were uncomfortable because they think that homeless drug addicts are obviously bad people. And that's just a judgment call. And that's okay. People, if they don't know any better, how are they supposed to not be judgmental? If you've learned your whole life that something is supposed to be a certain way, otherwise it's wrong, it's not your fault. I just don't judge. I personally accept everyone the way they are. Certain people I don't necessarily get along with, but it doesn't mean that I'm any better. But the way some people walk past us on the streets, they do think they're better. And I don't say that lightly because I don't like to say stuff like that. I like to believe that everyone gives everyone a chance, but it's not true.
You grew up in Nanaimo, you said.
I did.
There seems to be like a perception that a lot of people, you know, who are homeless in Nanaimo are from somewhere else. What do you have to say to that?
I disagree. I fully disagree, actually. A good majority of us are from Nanaimo. Some of us, I know a couple of people have never even left Nanaimo, never even been to Parksville, let alone come from somewhere else. There's a, I don't know if you want to call it a curse or whatever you want to call it. Nanaimo, I call the Bermuda Triangle of the island. It sucks you in and you just can't leave. I've met a number of people that were passing through and never made it past here, you know, and they've been, 10, 20 years later, they're still here. And for some reason, they just can't go. And even if they do, they always come back. Nanaimo's different than everywhere else. And everyone's going to say that about their hometown, but Nanaimo just is. Nanaimo is rough. If you've never seen or experienced this life, you can be blind to it. And that's okay. I wish everyone had that opportunity to be blind to it. But once you've lived it, you can't unsee it. And it's all you do see. This town will eat you alive if you let it. But if you actually let yourself get to know people, trust the people down here to do good for you or good by you, you can be okay. There's some really, really decent, incredibly brilliant people out here. A good majority of the people that are actually on the streets are brilliant people. They're very smart. They're very wise people. They may not have started off making wise decisions, but they have brains that you'll never find just talking to your average person at the coffee shop. I've met some of the most amazing people in my life. I have heard some stories that just blow me away. And I've experienced things that I never would have ever got to see or do in my whole life if I was living, like I said, again, a normal person's life. I would not give up what I've learned being on the streets for anything. We're here because this is where we're from. This is where we live, and this is what we know.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
That was Sara Ladret talking about her experience with homelessness in Nanaimo. I asked Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krog why the city put up a fence around Italian Square Park in order to keep people who are homeless from camping there.
The reason for putting up the fencing is that we have received numerous complaints, particularly in the last few weeks, about the behaviors and concerns raised by people who are either shopping in the mall, attending the medical clinic, the operators and owners, business people. And an operational decision was made, quite appropriately, I would suggest, that an involving the police and bylaws was appropriate, that if this became a larger center, we would end up with the same problems that existed on Wesley Street. And as your listeners know, Wesley Street concluded with the fire marshal trying to step in, and of course an explosion that quite candidly, mercifully, did not kill or injure anybody severely. But that's the story of what happens with these encampments. We weren't prepared to see another Wesley Street with active drug transactions and use, open prostitution, chop shops operating, and public order is important. I can tell you anecdotally that a couple of fairly well-known drug dealers passed by during the placement of the fencing and the removal of the occupants. So I think that tells you as much as you want or don't want to know about what was happening in that part of our downtown.
Yeah, so I actually spoke to one of the people who was at the encampment, and she said that when they were removed, they were asking bylaws where they should go, like where they were allowed to go in the city, and bylaws told them that they should go to Bowen Park. Is that accurate in your understanding, or where do you think people should be going?
Well, look, it is the city, in accordance with the Supreme Court decisions that have been made in this province, has a bylaw in place, quite appropriately, as do other communities in accordance with Supreme Court decisions, that allow overnight camping in designated parks. The Supreme Court decision, it's Justice Hinkson, I think, gave the most notable decision, is very clear about what kinds of parks they are and where they can go, and people are allowed to camp there. I mean, I think it is an incredible human tragedy that in the 21st century, in 2021, I have to be talking about where people who are homeless can camp. But that is a reality until the housing that is underway, either in planning or construction in this community, is available. And frankly, for the more severe cases, the kind of facilities that provide the complex care that a significant number of people who are homeless now require to deal with their severe mental health, addiction, and acquired brain injury issues.
But, in the meantime, before these services are available, it seems like the city is just moving the problem from one place to another. Like, it's not really solving anything.
Look, firstly, and I'm not evading the responsibilities, but it is not the city's job, nor do we have the resources or the legal jurisdiction or the legal responsibility, as I've said many times before, and people need to understand this, to deliver mental health, addiction, and housing. Those are provincial responsibilities. The feds could step up to the plate and assist. We've found hundreds of millions of dollars to provide relief from COVID, but we don't seem to be hearing from Ottawa that they're prepared to provide the kind of monies necessary to deal with this. Now, to come back to your point, what are they supposed to do in the meantime? Please don't congregate in encampments such that we end up with another tent city or another Wesley Street or the mess that exists in Vancouver. I think your listeners are well acquainted with the fact that Vancouver police won't go into some of those encampments without significant numbers. People who deliver services won't go in without police presence. Firefighters won't go in without police to protect them. I mean, we can't allow places like that to develop into the kinds of encampments that exist where there is no public order, where the vulnerable are exploited. Because this isn't just about people who are homeless. This is about people who are capable of and are being exploited, whether it's for prostitution or theft or drug abuse. And it's sad and it's awful, but the public danger that was proven with the explosions on Wesley Street, which has been shown and proven over and over again with the situation in Victoria and the current situation in Vancouver, shows that allowing an encampment to reach a certain size is not healthy for its occupants, and it's certainly not healthy for the community. I can tell you today, when I went down to Port Place Mall to make a few purchases, and I spoke to the security guard who came up to me and thanked me profusely. He said, "It's a lot quieter down here." He said, "If people only knew, I've been spat on, I've been harassed, I've been sworn at over and over again." He said, "People need to do my job for a little while." Because there are two sides to this story. There is our natural human compassion for the most vulnerable amongst us who are out in the streets, but there's also the lives of all the people who are trying to work and make a living, the patients who are trying to go to the clinic, people who are just shopping. And eventually, when it gets really bad, those businesses will shut down and those services will not be available for the people who live in the area. Is it an untenable and horrible situation? Yeah, it is. It is for everybody. But allowing an encampment to grow to a size that it becomes another tent city or Wesley Street is simply not acceptable.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Mayor. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
More than welcome. Good to talk to you.
That was Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krog on the city's response to homeless encampments, as well as a lack of mental health and addiction supports in the city.
You're listening to Mid-Coast Morning on CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo. Do you have a business or nonprofit? Support local journalism by sponsoring Mid-Coast Morning. With nonprofit media, every dollar you spend goes back into our mission to support local journalism and local voices, not profit. Learn more about our very affordable rates by emailing sales@chly.ca. Up next, Joe Pugh's interview of Holly Bright and Samantha Tydion Price from Crimson Coast Dance.
I am joined now by Holly Bright, founder and artistic director of Crimson Coast Dance, and Samantha Tydion Price, assistant facilitator with the Body Talk HiP HoP PoW WoW workshop. Can you maybe start by telling us a bit about the workshop?
We have been supported by Nanaimo First Nation as well as Nanaimo Aboriginal Center and Sawak Learning Center to continue this idea of Indigenous teens choosing what they wish to explore for a week through performing arts. And it really is open to youth who wish to be allies as well. And so there's a gathering every week that happens from October to March, and the youth they curate the artists that they wish to spend spring break week with, 1 week out of spring break. And this year, in fact, they had a hard time deciding. So it's the longest and the most artists ever.
The poster talked about there's African dance and drum, there's Indigenous songs, dances, teaching, there's rap writing, there's hip hop dance. And I was kind of wondering, is it like, do you choose a stream that you want to go to and just like study one thing, but it's kind of all encompassing, like everyone studies all of those things?
One of the things that transpired over turning the curation and responsibility over to teens was that every year they were choosing hip hop. And I love hip hop. It's great. And it's great because guys are doing it. That's fantastic. Boys learn a lot about their strength and their relationships when they dance. So I really wish to support that while also desiring to expand their awareness of what's out there for dance. And so the stipulation became, okay, fine, you can choose 2 dance forms. One can be anything you want, and the other requires to be cultural or fantastical. Like it could have been circus, could be working with in mixed abilities contexts. So youth started to choose things like capoeira and flamenco, or hip hop and African, hip hop and salsa. And then in 2017, when we really started to create a space, a safe space for Indigenous youth, and to learn what that was. I'm a non-Indigenous person, and Crimson Coast Dance is really a colonial structure in terms of nonprofit charities. And I think what really resounded in terms of the youth and their parents was learning their own culture. So learning Coast Salish culture and sharing culture, cultural knowledge and dances and songs. And at that point, I realized this was not a place for me necessarily to be the lead. And I looked to the Indigenous community to see who was available and interested to support what was happening. And that's where our facilitators have come in, who are Indigenous and who bring this wealth of knowledge and life experience. And the youth continue to select. They love their culture. I love watching them love their culture and experiencing that. And so they're choosing Coast Salish teachings always as part of it, as well as exploring other nations' protocol and practices.
Curious about some of the challenges you have faced with the whole COVID thing, and how have you kind of tackled those hurdles?
With COVID-19 coming into place, and this being my first year, I've experienced the challenges right from the beginning. I was able to experience Body Talk previously with the facilitator who I know very well. Her name was Echo, and she was able to introduce culture in such a personal way, because she was able to hold space personally every week, vibing with the youth. And so that's what's been challenging this time, now that we had a few sessions before COVID got really strict with the restrictions, and we were able to gather safely, and it was so great. It was in the beginning, so it was nice to be able to connect, which helped us carry on through the process of Zoom. And although we have transitioned into this realm in this kind of way, still being able to share teachings and provide that space, and still being able to hold that space for them to come in, it's shown that it's very important to them still, because they're still showing up and they're still doing their best to participate with whatever circumstances are happening in their lives as well. So here I'm talking about my work experience, but this is our students and our young ones' lives who also have changed. So being able to carry on that space, even with these challenges that I'm facing, I'm realizing it means a lot to them to join us every week, and to have the wonderful guests that we are able to bring in for them to learn from. And for them to continue to expand, because we're near the end of the beginning of our workshop week, and they're still having some great ideas for next year and for things to grow, and that's what we want. So the challenges are still hard with COVID, but being able to carry through with culture and beauty, and trying to carry that within our own self and our own space, is what we're getting from this for sure.
And I'm wondering about how specifically it affects dance, because I mean, dance is very, I would imagine, hard to do compared to a lot of other art forms in front of a very small webcam screen.
Well, we said the studio we're using, where most of the artists will be, has a camera set up on the wall behind, so that you can see the mirror, the back of the artist who's teaching, as well as the front of the artist. And then it has a TV screen on the other side, so students can see the artist or the other participants who are zooming in if they are in studio. So dance studios have adapted. Dance teachers have been teaching online now for a year, and you see the full body. They know how to break it down, how to come over to the Zoom camera and say, okay, Joe, I noticed that you could kick your leg a little higher. Or you're kicking your leg, but you're also tilting your pelvis. Don't do that. Keep your pelvis straight and kick that leg up, things like that. So, and then they can demonstrate it and the student can see what's happening. So everyone is adapting, and it is surprising to me that we can actually form connection through the internet. And yes, it's different. However, it's still essential.
Is this something, if I'm interested and I'm a teen and I have nothing planned for March break, something that I can sign up for still and register for?
Absolutely. People can register up until, I guess it starts at 10 Monday morning, so we would prefer everyone register by Sunday so we know who's coming in. We have great bandwidth. And the important thing for people to know is, what is your bandwidth? Can you watch all day streaming and communicate as well? Do you know how to run Zoom? We have someone standing by who's willing to onboard youth. And if we know in advance, we're setting up individual files for each participant so that they have access to the teaching materials that are not necessarily live exchanges. Some of the artists are bringing in video clips and documents that talk about the history of hip hop or rap writing, for instance, or the African experience of community. So resource material, every participant gets a file with their own resource material in it. So if we know you're coming, then you'll be sure to have your file. We also have a group coming in from Ontario, actually, a group of 6th graders. And so they'll have one file and their teacher is managing their file. So what's beautiful about this experience is that people from all over the country, even the world, can participate in group or individually.
Let's say, though, that I am unfortunately no longer a teen as much as I like to act like one sometimes. Do you have any tips on how just general members of the community who might be interested in some of the topics can get more connected with that?
Absolutely. So on our Facebook page, we have a Facebook event page for Body Talk HiP HoP PoW WoW Spring Break. And we have one for Body Talk HiP HoP PoW WoW Culminating Performance. And we have our own Crimson Coast Dance Society. So we will be releasing short clips by each of the artists every day to let people in on what we're doing. We'll be engaging in posts and sharing, as will the artists. And then there's the culminating performance. So my invitation is to get your ticket, register. It's very inexpensive, and we never turn people away for lack of resources. So you can always contact us if the $15 ticket is prohibitive. Attend the performance on Saturday night, the 27th at 7:30. It is also going to be on Zoom. You'll get your link when you purchase your ticket or contact us, and get a sense of what's happening. It won't be the same as a theater performance. It'll be a Zoom theater. So we're really excited about that, and we've been doing a few of those, and it's really fun. And what's great about Zoom is that you actually get to have conversations. So after the show, everybody's going to get to have a conversation about their experience of participating or watching the show. And then be on the lookout, because we are bringing back the intergenerational component. We were expecting to potentially do that this year. COVID really has maxed our capacity, and so we were unable to integrate that. And hey, this is a teen thing. These are for teens. So even though I was thinking, it'd be nice to have Joe come on in. Joe, you're not a teenager. But when we do the intergenerational component, I will make sure you know about it, because it is so fun. And then everybody performs together. And one of the things that I've learned is that how important all the generations' voices are within the Indigenous communities. My goodness, we have so much to learn about that, for one thing. And when we removed that component to focus on teens and to focus our organization on understanding how to be a safe space, it was only because of our capacity. And now that we have our Indigenous facilitators and the community is understanding what we're doing, and I see that the youth are coming back and interested, we'll continue this, and we'll get to add that intergenerational component. So that happens in the evening. Anyone else can participate in the evenings, and teens can re-participate in the evenings too.
I think it's a great transition as well for our youth who are like growing into the mentors that they are, also to transition into a space in their adulthood. So I think that's also such a great stepping stone for their artistry and continuing to support them.
Holly Bright, founder and artistic director at Crimson Coast Dance, and Samantha Tydion Price, assistant facilitator with the Body Talk HiP HoP PoW WoW workshop, which is taking place next week over March break in Nanaimo, culminating in a performance open to the public on Saturday, March 27th.
Thank you, Joe Pugh, for that interview. Sign up for the workshop before the end of Sunday at crimsoncoastdance.com. You're listening to Midcoast Morning on CHOI 101.7 FM in Nanaimo.
This week, Nanaimo City Council requested a staff report on the possibility of banning the controversial practice of so-called conversion therapy in the city. I spoke with Alessandro Iachelli, president of the Nanaimo Pride Society, about why he thinks conversion therapy is dangerous for LGBTQ people. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you just tell our listeners what conversion therapy is?
Yeah, so conversion therapy is a practice that's engaged in by religious organizations and other individuals to try and change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity. And
And what is the current state of legislation around conversion therapy in Canada? Like, where's this country at on this issue?
Yeah, so currently in BC, there is no provincial legislation. There is a federal bill that was reintroduced in Parliament in October. It's currently sitting with the Committee on Justice and Human Rights, and it's at stage 2 of a 7-stage process, and that was since December. So we're unsure where and how long it will take to finally go through the whole process for it to come into effect. Municipally, there are about 20 municipalities across Canada that have bylaws or policies in place.
And have you had any, personal experience with conversion therapy, or do you know friends or family that have gone through this? And what has that been like?
Yeah, so I've personally had, through previous experience, had people trying to change who I was when I came through my coming out process. I've also had friends who were subjected to this practice by religious organizations or so-called professionals trying to change their sexual orientation and gender identity. And, I've had friends want to commit suicide, friends who've been, doing drugs, and, I've had severe traumatic effects on their lives, and gladly, they were able to come out the other side through the support of, queer organizations and community groups and people within our communities. But yeah, I've seen the, emotional toll and traumatic aspect of what this sort of thing can do.
And in terms of the city, with the pending or the potential federal legislation, why go to the city level? Like, why go to a level of government that's usually about building sewer pipes and maybe issuing parking tickets and property taxes, that sort of thing. Like, what can the city do?
Well, actually, the city has a lot of flexibility in what it does, and it's also the closest level of government to our daily lives. It can put through bylaws to ban conversion therapy, like the other 20 municipalities that have already done so. It relates to the issuing of business licenses. It also issues permits, approvals for a wide variety of activities. It also rents public facilities to organizations. It also provides grants and funding to various organizations, nonprofits, and so on. So it's a lot of it also has to do about closing loopholes. A lot of experts do agree that the best comprehensive solution would be legislation at all 3 levels of government. federally, provincially, and municipality. And also, it's, the city has in its mandate to create a welcoming, inclusive, and safe community. And so it's also a gesture, a symbolic gesture as well, but it also has, the powers to do a lot of various things. And so, Nanaimo can follow the lead of other municipalities and make sure that, this sort of thing doesn't happen here.
Right. Now, in terms of the provincial government, have you had any engagement at the provincial level in terms of the NDP potentially putting forward a bill?
From what I've been talking with provincial government, I have sent emails. Also, other individuals and organizations have asked that the bill be introduced in the legislature and so on. So I haven't recently heard anything back. From what I was told was that there was intention to bring this legislation forward, but we don't know the timeline for it. So it could be, next month. It could be in 6 months. And, legislation at the provincial and federal levels takes a lot longer to enact. So, I think this issue is time sensitive. I don't want to see any youth or adult, suffering because of inaction by governments to ban this horrible practice.
Okay, so I guess where do we go from here? Like in terms of the next step at the city, I believe the motion was for a staff report to come back.
Yeah.
So like is that something that you were happy with, or would you like to see the council move ahead on this? At the last meeting?
No, I understand that there is a process, and I think it was smart to ask for a staff report because I know that there is staff now engaged in this, and we've forwarded the information and resources that city staff can look at, including the legislation and bylaws that there are in various places in Canada, and to see how it best fits here in Nanaimo. And we hope that it is, going to be a really short process with everything that we supplied, as well as, we have a lot of support from councillors themselves and members of the Community on Inclusivity and Accessibility. So, there's a lot of work already done on this, so it shouldn't really take that long, and hopefully they'll provide an option relatively soon, and City Council will pass this in a timely manner.
Okay, and maybe just is there anything that our listeners can do if they want to engage on the issue? There's still opportunity for them to write their city councilor, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I write mayor and council all the time on a wide variety of issues related to queer communities here in Nanaimo. The address is on the city government website, and I do encourage, everybody from within our queer community, but also the broader community. I mean, anybody that has, a daughter, a son, a brother, a sister, that, could potentially be affected by this, to certainly write mayor and council and, make sure that, Nanaimo's a welcoming and inclusive, safe space for everybody. And, yeah.
Okay, great. And in terms of Nanaimo Pride, is there anything that you want to give a little plug for?
Well, so due to COVID, last year we had to cancel our in-person events. This year we're going completely virtual in June. We will have various visibility symbols downtown. We will be doing a bunch of online events, and we're always monitoring what's happening with COVID. And as soon as, the green light's given to resume smaller in-person events, we will be doing that for sure, because I know our community has been suffering a lot at not being able to get together and celebrate. And, next year in June, we will be doing our traditional Pride Month fully in person, and there's going to be a lot of new surprises. So we're excited about, turning the corner on COVID, and hopefully with the vaccine rollout complete, we can go back to somewhat normal and, celebrate together. Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe you actually have a concert tonight with Elise Boulanger.
Yeah, Elise Boulanger, we have that. You can check out the info on our website or social media channels. Elise has been very supportive of Nanaimo Pride, and we're really glad to be doing something with them. And it should be a really fantastic event, and hopefully people will join it. And tickets are only $10, and it all goes to support Nanaimo Pride and its events and programming and services.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me.
Alessandro Iachelli, president of the Nanaimo Pride Society on Banning Conversion Therapy.
You're listening to Midcoast Morning on CHLY in Nanaimo. Wrapping up the show again, a feature from Joe Pugh with Brendan Macleod of Vancouver band The Fugitives.
Welcome to part 2 of a special feature on the album Trench Songs by The Fugitives. In part 1, we introduced the album made up of First World War songs with new contemporary melodies written by the band. We also heard Hanging on the Old Barbed Wire, a song that speaks about some universal truths of soldiering. We turn now in part 2 from the universal to the personal and talk about another track on the album, Take Me Back to Old Ontario. It turns out this is the one that kind of got the ball in motion.
Yeah, so this is the first one we wrote for this project, and we didn't really know it was a project at that point. Like, I was working on the theater show, and then we were on tour together in a couple of summers ago when you could still do that kind of thing. And I told them about the project I was working on, and then they were like, "Oh, cool." And I was like, for instance, I got this little thing, but all I really had was the melody for the verse and the chorus. And then Chris and Carly, so Chris is our banjo player and Carly's our violin player, they just started doing this little plinkety-plink thing.
The intro to the song, a little plinkety-plink thing. It's amazing to hear how a whole powerful concept album about soldiers who fought thousands of miles away hundreds of years ago is sort of born out of a banjo riff. You can hear how things snowballed from there.
It's a really kind of like ended up being a song we jammed out together. So they wrote that little intro. I think Adrian and I worked on the verse and choruses together, and then we started playing that on tour. And then when we started explaining the story behind the concept of the album, people started coming up and asking us questions about that. And so then we kind of were like, oh, it seems like people are interested in this project. And that kind of spurred us to do a bit more of it. And so really kind of that song was like, I guess, the genesis for more of it to come. And it was very much more of a team writing effort than usually it's just Adrian and I are kind of working on our own, but that one was a little bit more the four of us.
Now that we know where the music came from, what's the story behind the words?
Yeah, it's from McMaster University. I found this like treasure trove because they actually had PDF'd online this old Canadian songbook from World War I. It's like a soldier songbook. So it has a lot of like patriotic tunes, but it has like, jokey tunes and a lot of hymns they would sing and just a whole bunch, thousands of pages. So I found this one in there, and it's really because in World War I, the Canadian forces weren't as large as like they were in the Second World War, for instance. So they were still under British command. So it's really kind of hard to find. There's a lot of source material for like with English or Irish, like people always yearning to go back to like Donegal is a third song on our album, and people want to go back there. So it was hard to find something Canadian specific that also wasn't like, oh, go get them lads, kill the Germans, and something that we didn't really want to represent in the album.
So it was hard to find something Canada specific. Somehow that doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I think it almost feels good in a way. The First World War, to me, has always seemed like a conflict where millions of innocent people died in the name of nationalism and vague geopolitical concerns. If I were to oversimplify a bit, I would say that one of my big takeaways from the war is that too much patriotism is bad. That being said, I feel that Take Me Back to Old Ontario is the right kind of patriotism. Listen to this excerpt.
Where the sun does ever shine, where the tall and stately maples bear their branches to the sky. Take me back to old Ontario, where my dear old mother lies.
It's about a connection to the land, the tall and stately maples, and to the people who live on it, where my dear old mother lies. There's no chest-beating, rah-rah Canada, just a dying soldier's wish to return to the place he spent his life. It rings out as true and honest. But do we know whose story it is? Did it really happen?
So it's by a guy named Frankie Balson, and then the trail has kind of gone cold for me there at that point. It's not a well-known song. I haven't been able to dig up any actual information. So, always on the lookout if someone out there happens to know.
If you know Frankie Balson, don't hesitate to get in touch. Though, maybe not knowing adds to the song's appeal. In our minds, it can live on as a true and tragic tale. The album was released around Remembrance Day of this past year. It almost felt weird to be doing a feature on it so far removed from November. Sure, I'm passionate and interested in the topic, but is there an appetite for it now? You wouldn't talk about a Christmas album in July. Does the way we treat Remembrance Day change how we remember the rest of the year? I hope not, but I was curious to hear Brendan's thoughts on the matter.
It wasn't really planned around Remembrance Day. And then we recorded the album in the summer because all of our tour plans got scuttled. So we probably wouldn't even record it then. And then we were going to release it in the fall, and we were like, well, Remembrance Day is a bit more natural fit. So it really just kind of, again, happened organically. And it's tough. The actual Ridge show has a lot of thoughts, in particular on Remembrance Day, and kind of, in some ways, the vacuous nature of that and what it's become is not... I would say there's a lot of ways we could remember more accurately and more with more energy than we do on Remembrance Day. And Remembrance Day kind of gives our society it's become this thing where we're just able to just be like, oh yeah, well, we have that one day where we think about it, as opposed to really having it be much closer in our consciousness of like how much of what has happened today has been founded on things that have happened in the last 100, 150 years, a lot of it having to do with war and what we can do to improve on that. And so I think that's a part of our consciousness. Like, we're just, as Canadians, we're very bad at thinking about clearly and realistically about the past. And you can see that in our, settlers and in relationship to Indigenous people. Like, we're just not, we just hide and lie and don't think about it that often. And so, I guess this is a long way of saying that I know I don't really want the project to only be associated with Remembrance Day, although obviously when Remembrance Day comes around, I'm definitely happy to talk about this project and just remembrance in general, because it's something I'm really interested in.
There's a lot to unpack there, on our relationship with the past, on how, what, when, and why we remember. The past is theory. People can twist it, ignore it, bend and shape it to fit an agenda. Trench Songs reminds us that beneath all that, history is just people. People like you and me. They complained about their bosses, they tried to make light of the darkest situations, and in the end, they wanted nothing more than to go home and be with the ones they loved. Take me back to old Ontario.
Far and foreign land lay a wounded soldier boy. He was fighting for a flag he thought was right. And as he lay there dying, his comrades gathered near to listen to the last words that he'd say. He raised up on his arm looked off towards the west, watched the setting sun fade fast away. As he lay back on the ground, a tear bedimmed his eye. Those who gathered round heard him say, take me back to old Ontario, where the sun does ever shine, where the tall and stately maples bear their branches to the sky. Take me back to old Ontario, where my dear old mother lies. Take me back to old Ontario, lay me by my mother's side. It was in a southern city where the streets were paved and hard. A ragged newsboy trudged from day to day, and his cheeks were thin and pale, his head was tired and hard, and his thoughts were of his old home far away. And he dropped down on the doorstep, and he there fell fast asleep in dreamland, and he wandered back again. As a passerby drew near, he stopped to watch the lad, and heard him whisper faintly this refrain, take me back to old Ontario, where the sun does ever shine, where the tall and stately maples bear their branches to the sky. Take me back to old Ontario, where my dear old mother lies. Take me back to old Ontario, lay me by my mother's side. Take me back, take me back, take me back, old Ontario. 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 Take me back. Take me back to old Ontario, lay me by my mother's side.
For CHLY, I'm Joe Pugh. You heard Brendan Macleod of Vancouver band The Fugitives talking about their latest album, Trench Songs.
That's our show for today. I'm Mick Sweetman, and thank you for listening. Midcoast Morning is co-hosted and produced by Jesse Woodward, with technical assistance from Arby Frew. Our theme music is Good Company from the Nanaimo band A Venice. You can help support Midcoast Morning as a project of CHLY's news department by making a donation at chly.ca/donate.
Midcoast Mornings is now up on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Give the show a boost by rating and reviewing it. Then share it with your friends online on Facebook or Twitter.
Have a story you'd like us to cover? Email us at news@chly.ca or leave a message on our voicemail at 778-441-4543. Midcoast Morning is funded in part by the Community Radio Fund of Canada and Heritage